work on statistical data that we've shared recently, which shows that currently the trans community is contemplating suicide at about 81%, and about 54% have attempted. Dr. Juan Moriel is a director of Fox Behavioral Health, and then also our medical director, Dr. Scott Nass, who's also the president of the Gay and Lesbian Medical Association. Some people ask why we have this, and sometimes people ask why we actually raise funds. This year, I was saddened because Marilyn, one of those that was murdered in Brawley, was someone that I knew. And she was stabbed to death, and she was left in an abandoned home. It became very personal, and we went down there and for their morning and the vigil, listening to the mother cry unconditionally because her child is gone. And we, with these funds, not only help prevent that in our area by trying to navigate situations and prevent toxic situations where people can be harmed, but also we go down and to Maryland offer to help with the funeral services. So this day is not only a day where we recognize those that have been murdered and senselessly taken from us, but also it's a time that we can create change by conversation and support in trans-led organizations. So a trans-led organization like ours means that we're 65% or more employ transgender, gender non-conforming, and intersex individuals. Funny thing, even our window washer is a trans woman. So we really push to try to have an environment that is safe and embracing to diversity and gives the trans community a safe space where they can be who they are and we can help them in the ways that we can. It's important to our community that really misunderstands us and what we do to understand that we have to start elevating the T in LGB. It's been too long. It's 50 years later after Stonewall riots. We're still fighting to stay alive. We're still fighting to use the bathrooms for health care and to not have to be forced into situations that we don't want. Underground economies and other things. It's important that the community that are allies for the trans community or TGI community steps forward, and they may not understand why we do things the way that we do, because when you deal with gender, it's totally different than sexual orientation. So when we have those situations, often we're already facing barriers in life, facing getting a home, facing getting a job because we look differently, but facing all these other hurdles. So we have to navigate those things. And so navigating those makes it very complex when you face intersectionalities, when you face systemic barriers, when you face prejudice, and often you face violence. There's never a year that goes by that I have been doing the TDoR that I don't get a message threatening my life. I, to this day, carry mace and I carry a taser just in case. But the person's names, reading the names of those that have passed, are extremely important. And if I know one day if I pass, I made the most important choices that helped my community move forward, I know I can rest in peace. I think it's really important that we understand towards our brothers and sisters that are cisgender, the non-trans individuals, that it's a time where we don't need to economically capsize on the suffering of that community, of the TGI community. It's time to empower that community and their leadership so they can create their own identity in the community. The same as the gays, the same as the lesbians, and now it's beginning with the bisexuals. So it's really important as a community that we support them. And we support trans-led organizations because, like in our situation, 97% of anything that we generate goes right back into that community. 97% or more sometimes. And when it's a non-trans-led, it's usually the reverse. And although they're doing good work, and it's important work, the trans community remains double the unemployment rate, highest HIV rate, highest murder rate, highest violence rate, highest harassment rate. Domestic violence is the highest. Suicide attempts are the highest. Family rejection is the highest. Even adoption, trans kids are adopted the least. And knowing all these hurdles and all these things, already 10 things that a person's facing before they can even try to live authentically. So it's really important as a community that we support trans-led leadership. We belong to a coalition now that shows that we are organizing and we are coming forward and we're having our own views and our thoughts and our own navigation on how we see the world that we need to fit into needs to change. There's over 50 trans-led organizations in California, led by the Trans Latina Coalition in LA. We sit on that. This year, we made history by passing AB 2218. It's the first time in history that I'm aware of in California that a trans-led organizations actually got legislation passed to provide funding for trans-led organizations so they can do the reach. The difference between a trans-led organization and a non-trans organization is often we put them on our couch. We make it personal. They're family. They're part of our tribe. They're part of our people. And although we have our differences and we argue like any other family, ultimately they know that we'll be there for them. It's not bound by policy and preclusion and I can't do this and I can't do that. We find ways to solve their problems so that they can have healthy, happy homes and employment. Those three things, if we get all of them going, the individual becomes stable and can start living and just living their dream. Maybe they want to be an artist. Maybe they want to be a hairstylist. Maybe they want to go to school and become something. Maybe they just want to be a cashier. But all those things are challenges for the trans community on a daily basis because they're constantly pointed out that we're different. Although I'm white, and I bring this up, my own community rejects me. They don't see me as being a part of their community. I'm often seen as trans, as though it's some sort of color. So I jokingly often say, I'm gray. And I often face the same struggles that others do. Trans women of color are the the highest murder rate. In 1 month in America, we had 6 murdered in the South. 6. They were murdered by the week. We didn't even know if we could go outside. We were sending emails saying, okay, there's an alert. You need to be aware of this. This is going on. Be cautious of your surroundings. And we have to live that way every day. Internationally, there's over 350 that are documented in your bulletin. Please take one of those bulletins. You can learn about why it's so important. And they're predominantly trans women of color. The number one murderer in America, trans women of color. That is another one that's murdered. We need to embrace our mothers, our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, and as the latest one that was murdered in Miami, she basically said we need to teach the next generation love. They need to learn to love one another, and they need to learn to respect one another. And we do that. At the Transgender Health and Wellness Center, we started working with the Riverside County Workforce Development. We are now taking the LGBTQ kids 16 to 24, and we're teaching them job skills in a safe environment. We're teaching them how to do PowerPoints. We say, create a PowerPoint about your experience here, and you're going to present it. We're teaching them work skills so that they can be competitive in a work environment if they want to be queer. You know, in my generation, that was a word we never used. And the new generation has claimed that word. If they're trans, if they're non-binary, creating a world where they have competitive skills against others that are privileged and don't face the barriers that we face. The kids face them so much, and it's so difficult with the children. A wonderful thing is that we have the potential to create change. And we have the potential to be allies, support one another in a coalition, and continue to keep at least our area and our silo, our little rainbow factory, as I like to call it, safe. That's some of the stuff that we do. We often meet with Gustavo at the Palm Springs Police Department, and we work with them saying, hey, this is going on, we need to work with this, we need to do this, we need to do that, let's change this around, so that we can maintain environments that ensure that we are not nationally noticed for a murder. And statistically speaking, it could happen because of the concentration of trans people that come here as a safe space. They come here because they know they're safe. One of our receptionists said, you know, I chose to move to Palm Springs because I saw that Lisa Middleton could be a success. That told me there, I can be a success. She left Arizona, moved here. We want to have that. We want to have a place that is recognized globally, which we are with our statue, that we are recognized globally as the best place for trans people. But with that comes a responsibility. We have to make sure that we support the individuals that are creating that change, that are basically saying, look, I know you don't get it, okay, but let's do this, 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 and this is going to happen. They'll access more health care, they'll access more mental health care, we can get them stable, and then from there we can work on their resumes and get them employment, and we can do all those things. So understanding that when someone has their own home and is paying home, mortgages, complaining about those mortgages, remember there are people that just wish that they had a home, that are living in abandoned cars, that are living in abandoned hotels, or they have to go out with the underground economy to pay the hotel room for the next day. They're forced into that because they don't have the same privilege and economic opportunity that has been developed since the Stonewall riots for other communities. And again, 50 years has passed with Stonewall, and the trans community is still trying to get the basic rights to have employment, and a lot of them don't even have the skills for the employment that they can try to get because they've been kicked out of their homes and they've been surviving on the streets. They don't even get the education and the support from a family member which sets them on that route. and then trying to get them to bend and get him off of that path becomes extremely more difficult when they don't have a loving family. And in our community, basically, we need to basically have the families support the rest of the children. In our community, you know, the kids, we've noticed that once we have a supportive family, that basically their grades improve. The mother that helped design our center, oh my God, you know, his grades have went from C's and D's, and now he has A's and B's, and he's got a job at Jamba Juice. She's just ecstatic that the child is actually living authentically. And so we work with those families to create that next generation where they can just have the dreams of anyone else, just to have American dreams of, I want to become an actor, or I want to become a scientist, or I want to become this or that. Having that opportunity where you're not laughed at and going, yeah, you're never going to do that. You know, they're never going to accept you. And that basically sends them on a different path. This year we are doing it virtual, but as it's gotten darker, I see so many candles flickering. It's very beautiful. And I want to thank you. A few things that we have to go over before we start reading the names is you'll see that there's tea lights every 6 feet. So please make sure that you stay 6 feet apart. Please make sure you wear your masks. Okay? Also, you know, the lights that you have to take with you. And that's fine. That'll give you a little a momentum there. And then we also ask you to basically, when you go home, have the conversations of how we can help this community who is facing murders weekly, literally weekly, underneath our current administration. It's just horrible. Some of these murders, reading the crimes, are just, how can people like this be on the streets? And take that moment and think about how you in your life can help improve that marginalized community that faces not only intersectionalities, it faces racial prejudice, injustice. It's not often included in its own communities. You know, there's a lot of homophobia, lesbophobia, transphobia, and people are struggling with those things. And we currently have an administration that I'm so thankful is leaving that has not been supportive of that community, and in my opinion, has created a world that it's okay to hurt others. And we need to be very supportive and understanding and compassionate and find ways that we can make sure in our neighborhoods here improve. And I think one of the things that we probably need to know is what is and is not okay when you hold a Transgender Day of Remembrance. And hopefully if you're talking to someone in another state that is thinking about that and wants to reach out and do that, you can guide them. Transgender Day of Remembrance should be led by trans individuals. We require the allies to help us where we don't have the skill sets and teach our community those skill sets. It's important not to divide the community on Transgender Day of Remembrance. And it's important that it's the trans people that put on that event because it is their mourning. It's something like Veterans Mourning on Memorial Day. You would want to have veterans, things like that. So when you have the keys to the standards that we have, we are welcome to share them with anyone who wants to put it on. It doesn't matter if one person shows up or 100 people show up. What matters is that we read their names We share their stories because humans are storytellers by this nature. Since it goes back to caves. We are storytellers. And share them, recognize them, mourn them, humanize them. It's really important that trans people are recognized as humans and that we're evolving quite quickly. The gays have paved that road for us, quite quickly. Sometimes we cannot keep up with our own changes. And it's important that, we as a community to support equality and want violence to end, that we recognize marginalized communities. We recognize African Americans who are intensely face so much violence, and other communities, that we as a community have to understand our part that we play in that. Some of it sometimes is complacency. Some of it is that we don't do anything because we're too busy. My way of doing that, when I'm too busy, I just pop a $50 donation on there. That's what I'll do. I'll do something to help out the other person that's going to be advocating and doing that. And just understanding how the world has been created for a small group of individuals to thrive, but it's left out so many minorities. It's left out so many women, so many trans people, queer people, gender non-conforming people, effeminate gays. They face a lot of homophobia as much as trans people do. The butch lesbians, they face a lot more than the lesbians that, quote, can fit into society's norms. Violence, prejudice, and injustice is transmorphic. And what that means is, while you're dealing with it here, you're saying, Matthew Shepard, this is a horrible situation, and everything like that. When that moves, then it's over here, and it's the trans individuals. People who hate and people who support violence, it just moves and it shifts. So it's important that we have a zero tolerance to anything that is violence, and we find reasons and solutions where everyone in the community can thrive, love one another, and live together. Doesn't mean we always have to agree. Doesn't mean we always have to understand, but we need to be supportive. And we need to make sure that those that are marginalized communities that have not had the same privilege and economic opportunities are given that now. There's enough to pass around. There's enough that someone can get a job and have dignity and respect, to know that they complain about taxes. Some people complain about that, and other individuals are like, well, I wish I had a check that could complain about taxes. So just make sure that you're very conscious tonight. We're going to be reading their names and a short story about them. And we're change things around a little bit. So be patient that these individuals have taken the time to put themselves out as trans, and that are willing to support their brothers and sisters that have been murdered, and to share their stories, and hope that everyone will be able to share that with someone else, and we can move and create change, real change in our community, for the trans community, and be even more known for it. And just know that we're doing the right thing. So I want to thank you, and I've got a flower. So I would like to introduce Nell, and I'm going to let Nell start. Thank you.
Go to trans.health/donate. Trans.health/donate.
Good evening. Mr. Dustin Parker, 25, was fatally shot in Dallas, Oklahoma, early on in his life. His employers released a statement shortly after his death, remembering Parker as a steadfast friend, an amazing husband, and a father and a generous to a fault. He loved fiercely, worked tirelessly, and took on life with so much hope and enthusiasm that his presence brightened all of our lives. Miss Neulisa Luciano Ruiz was fatally shot in Toa Baja, Puerto Rico on February 24th. According to Metro Puerto Rico, members of the community knew her as humble and noble. Mr. Yampi Mendez Arocho, 19, was killed in Moca, Puerto Rico on March 5th. Arocho, a transgender man, shared his love for basketball and the NBA, donning Miami Heat apparel on social media. The biography line on his Facebook reads, "Humility prevails." Miss Scotland Kelly DeVore, 51, was murdered in Augusta, Georgia on March 12, was gunned down. DeVore's family and friends remember her as a joyful and pleasant person. Georgia does not have an explicit laws that protect transgender and gender non-conforming people from hate crimes and violence. Miss Monica Diamond, 34, a black transgender woman, was killed in Charlotte, North Carolina on March 18th. Diamond was active in the Charlotte LGBTQ and nightlife community and was the co-owner of an event promotion company. She also was the co-CEO of the International Mother of the Year pageantry system, a pageant that honors LGBTQ mothers.
Go to trans.health for more information about the Transgender Health and Wellness Center, trans.health. And you can go to trans.health/donate to make a contribution. Trans.health/donate to make a contribution.
Miss Dria McCarthy, 28, a transgendered woman, was killed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on June 30th. Circumstances of her murder are not being released, and homicide investigation is ongoing. Miss Shaki Peters, a 32-year-old black transgendered woman, was killed in Louisiana on July 1st. In just 4 days, we have seen the death of at least 3 transgender and gender non-conforming people, including Shakia Peters. This horrific spike in violence against our community must be an urgent call to action for every single person in this nation, said Tori Cooper, Director of Community Engagement for HRC's Trans Justice Initiative. Miss Bree Black, a 27-year-old black transgendered woman, was killed in Pompano Beach, Florida on July 3rd. These killings are being fueled by the deadly combination of racism and transphobia, and they must cease. We must come together as a community and demand justice for those who are taken from us. This was said by Tori Cooper as well, Director of Community Engagement for HRC's Trans Justice Initiative. Miss Summer Taylor, a white non-binary person, was killed in Seattle, Washington on July 4th. Ms. Taylor participated in the Black Femme March in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and against police brutality. Taylor worked full-time at the Urban Animal Veterinary Hospital. Miss Marilyn Monroe Carzanes was a transgendered Latina killed in Raleigh, California. Mindy Garcia, an aunt of hers, said she loved to sing and dance and never bothered anyone. Miss Carrion Burnett, a black transgendered woman, was killed in Independence, Missouri on September 19th. Her friends and family shared, if you want to have a good day, if you need a smile, Carrion was the person you wanted to be by your side. Miss Mia Green, 29, a black transgendered woman, was murdered in Philadelphia on September 28th. Her friends and family shared how her smile was so perfect that it was contagious. She made me laugh. Michelle Ramos Vargas, a transgendered woman from Puerto Rico, in her mid-30s, was killed in Saint Germain, Puerto Rico, on September 30th. This level of violence, any level of violence, is unacceptable. We are not doing enough to protect transgendered and gendered non-conforming people, especially trans women, said HRC's Tori Cooper. Miss Felicia Harris, a 33-year-old transgendered woman, killed in Augusta, Georgia on October 3rd. Felicia was an interior decorator who ran her own company where she enjoyed lending her eye to improve the surroundings of others and made others feel comfortable in their own space. Miss Brooklyn Deshauna Smith, 20, a black transgendered woman, was killed in Shreveport, Louisiana on October 7th. Brooklyn attended Vassia Parish Community College and was studying cosmetology. Miss Sarah Blackwood, a transgendered woman, was killed in Indianapolis, Indiana on October 11th. Recognized National Coming Out Day, she enjoyed playing video games and was a fan of the show My Little Pony.
The website is on your screen right now, trans.health/donate. If you want information about the organization as a whole, go to trans.health.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Meeks. I am a trans veteran and a board member at the Transgender Health and Wellness Center. I look forward, I do have a vision. I have a vision someday that we don't need an army of people up here to read these names of all the people that have passed this year. Ms. Layla Sanchez, 21, was killed in Puerto Rico on April 21st. Sanchez was killed alongside Serena Angelique Ramos, and according to reports, Sanchez had recently moved to the island and was living in the Tejas neighborhood of Las Piedras. On May 1st, 2 Puerto Rican men were charged under the federal hate crime for Sanchez's death. Miss Nina Pop, a black transgender woman, was killed in Saskatoon, Missouri on May 3rd. She was deeply loved by her family, friends, and community, according to her Facebook page. Ms. Hallie J. O'Regan, 20, a transgender woman, was killed in San Antonio, Texas on May 6th. O'Regan was proud of her trans identity, and on Twitter she often spoke out against injustice, including LGBT inequality, the prison industrial complex, and the need to decriminalize sex work. Damian Terrell Campbell, 42, has been charged with O'Regan's murder. Miss Jane Thompson, 33-year-old white transgender woman, was killed in Mesa County, Colorado on May 9th. She was killed by a Colorado State Patrol trooper and misgendered in the news. Mr. Tony McDade, a black transgender man, was killed in Tallahassee, Florida on May 27th. His friends and family shared how he was an energetic and giving person with a big heart. Miss Selena Reyes Hernandez, A 37-year-old transgender woman was killed in Chicago on May 31st. We have lost a beloved member of our trans community because of hate. Hate that has corrupted our country's soul and that shatters lives and futures every day, said Tori Cooper, HRC Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative.
We're watching the Transgender Day of Remembrance ceremonies live from in front of City Hall in Palm Springs, California. This event has the full support of the mayor and the city council. The mayor and two of the council people are here, and two are viewing from afar, but they're all behind this event.
Hello, my name is Vicky Withrow. I am an 18-year-old trans woman. Miss Christine Zephyr, 23. A transgender woman was killed in Mankato, Minnesota on October 10, 2019. She was detained by the Blue County Sheriff's Department and was later released at 3 p.m. wearing a gray sweatshirt and sweatpants and black shoes. Her body was later found by a hunter. Miss Brianna B.B. Hill, 30. A black transgender woman in Kansas City, Missouri, was murdered on October 14, 2019. She was a beloved member of the community, a fan of the Kansas City football team, and loved spreading joy and humor. Miss Nikki Kuhnhausen, 17. A transgender woman murdered in Larch Mountain, Oregon, December 7, 2019. She was strangled to death after it was discovered that she was transgender.
Remember, you can go to trans.health to learn more about the Transgender Health and Wellness Center, and go to trans.health/donate to do just that.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Derringer. I am a trans veteran. Miss Yahira Dayanese, 33. She was born in Brooklyn, New York, December 19, 2019, and she was gunned down at her Rockaway Parkway apartments in Brooklyn, New York. Miss Mia Penny, 26. She was a transgender woman who was shot in Washington, D.C., December 29, 2019. And she was gunned down by an armed member of a private security company while responding to a call about an intruder in an abandoned apartment building. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Annie Hockenauer. Miss Dominique Remy Fells, a black transgender woman, was killed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on June 9th. One personal friend posted online, "Dom was a unique and beautiful soul who I'm lucky to have known personally. I am beside myself right now. We need to fight. We need to do more. We will get justice." Miss Ria Milton, a 25-year-old black transgender woman, was killed in Liberty Township, Ohio on June 9th. In March, she posted the status, "Never been scared to struggle. I'm gonna get it eventually." A comment highlighting her resilience and optimism as a person facing a transphobic, misogynistic, and racist society. Mr. Brian Egypt Powers, a 43-year-old black transgender person, was killed in Akron, Ohio on June 13th. Powers worked at a local catering company and is remembered for wearing long, colorful braids, unicorn braids, as Powers called them. Miss Grayla Stone, a 17-year-old transgender girl, was killed in Little Rock, Arkansas on June 25th. Grayla Stone was a child just beginning to live her life, a child of trans experience, a Black girl, a person who had hopes and dreams and plans and community, said Tori Cooper, HRC Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative. On September 4th, a man was arrested on a murder charge in connection to her death. Miss Marseille Mack, a 20-year-old Black transgender woman, was killed in Dallas, Texas on June 30. Her loved ones shared how beautiful of a friend she was. On her social media, she had recently posted that she enjoyed baking and that she was looking forward to returning to work. On July 8th, a man was arrested on a murder charge in connection with her death. Miss Tatina Hall, 22, was killed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on June 30th. Accidental overdose, but the community continues to advocate that the circumstances are suspicious and should be further investigated. Miss Tiffany TDoR H. Ova Harris, who some report identified as Tiffany Harris, a Black transgender woman, was killed in the Bronx, New York. According to her Facebook, Ova loved fashion, listing her career as a personal shopper and posting photos with luxury fashion brands that she loved. On August 13th, a man was arrested on a murder charge in connection to her death. Ms. Keisha D. Hardy, a 20-year-old Black transgender woman, was killed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on July 27th. Hardy, a hairstylist, was extremely loved by her community. Friends and loved ones described her as loyal, loving, always smiling, the life of all parties, and truly one of a kind. Miss H.A. Raquel Roan Spears, who sometimes used the name Rocky Roan, a Black transgender woman, was killed in Portland, Oregon on July 28th. According to Facebook, she studied at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and was the owner and founder of International Barbie, a Portland-based clothing brand. Ms. Key Sam, a Black transgender woman, was killed in Lafayette, Louisiana on August 12th. We must all speak up in support of trans and gender non-conforming people and affirm that Black trans lives matter, said HRC's Tori Cooper, Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative. Ms. Rukia Isis Beamer, 22 of Cleveland, was the woman who died on the railroad tracks on August 30th. Rukia Isis Beamer walked head up, eyes open into a westbound train. Media reports from the area did not identify her by name or as a transgender woman. They simply identified her as a woman. We have since learned from reliable sources the person who died was in fact transgender woman Rukia Isis Beamer. She was truly a unique and magnetic young woman and would light up any room she entered. Miss Isabel Mia Lofton, 21, a transgender woman, was killed in Brooklyn, New York on September 7th. Allegedly, she fell from a rooftop, but her sisters believe it was a homicide. This investigation is still ongoing.
The Transgender Day of Remembrance, also known as the International Transgender Day of Remembrance, has been observed annually from its inception on November 20th as a day to memorialize those who have been murdered as a result of transphobia. It is a day to draw attention to the continued violence endured by transgender people. And our program continues.
Hi everybody, my name is Marcella and I'm a transgender woman. Ms. Lexia Bonisaran, 33, transgender woman, was killed in Harlem, New York on March 28. According to reports, Lexi was fatally stabbed in Harlem River Park. I really looked up to her because of her tolerance and respect, said Levonia Brooks, a friend of Lexi. Lexi had a beautiful heart. She was a very gifted.
Brooks also noted that Lexi loved poetry, makeup, and fashion. Miss Ashley Moore, 26, a black transgender woman, was killed in Newark, New Jersey on April 1st. Ashley Moore fell from a great height, and it is reported that her daughter was hit by a car. Initial contact stated that there was severe swelling to the neck and bleeding from the rectum before an autopsy was completed. Her body was cremated, which prevented the autopsy to determine potential murder. Ms. Johanna Metzger, a transgender woman, was killed in Baltimore, Maryland on April 11th. According to reports, she was visiting the Baltimore Recovery Center from Pennsylvania at the time. Johanna was known for her love of music and taught herself to play multiple instruments. Ms. Penelope Diaz Ramirez, a transgender woman, was killed in Puerto Rico on April 13th. Penelope did not deserve to die. Transgender people do not deserve to die. Every single advocate, ally, elected official, and community member must stand up in light of this horrific news and say no more. What we're doing is not enough, said Tori Cooper, HRC Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative. Ms. Serena Angelique Velasquez Ramos, 32, was killed in Puerto Rico. On April 24, Ramos was killed alongside Leila Pelaez Sanchez, 21. According to reports, Ramos was visiting the island on vacation and was set to return to her home in Queens, New York, at the end of the month. Loved ones are mourning her death, calling her full of life, a happy person, and a sincere friend. On May 1, 2 men were charged under federal hate crimes. Law for Ramos' death.
Transgender Day of Remembrance was founded in 1999 by Gwendolyn Ann Smith, a transgender woman, to memorialize the murder of transgender woman Rita Hester in Alliston, Massachusetts. It has slowly evolved from the web-based project started by Smith and into an international day of action celebrated or observed actually around the world.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angelina Love, and I am representing the Transgender Health and Wellness Center. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers. And as a trans woman of color, this has been a really hard year to watch these individuals continuously be murdered. Miss Angel Hayes, 25, a transgender woman, was killed in Memphis, Tennessee on October 25th. Angel was a carefree, caring, determined, funny, smart, and giving, free-spirited individual. This one's going to be a little hard for me, everyone, because on Tuesday, I was actually the fourth person to be notified of Miss Uni Carey Herrera, 39, a transgender woman of Cuban descent, stabbed to death with a fork in Miami, Florida on November 18th. Uni was a model. She was a very close friend to me. We transitioned the first 5 years together. She was also a performer and an LGBT rights activist. She was a significant advocate for the annual Transgender Day of Remembrance to address hate and violence against the TGI community. She advocated that the community should teach love, to love their children as if they are the only in senseless murders. I do apologize about getting a little emotional because on a day-to-day basis, Ms. Tommy Clinton and I, we work on the forefront in the trans community to make sure that our marginalized community does not fall by the wayside. You can be the generation that holds your leaders accountable for open, honest government at every level. Government that stamps out corruption and protects the rights of every citizen to speak freely, to worship openly, to love whoever they choose. You can be the generation to ensure that women are no longer second-class citizens and transgender individuals are no longer treated as second-class citizens. You can be the generation that stands up and says that violence against women or anyone that is a human being in any form, in any place, including within the home. And always remember, trans individuals do not choose to be born this way. We just want to be able to live authentically. And so before I leave, I felt like this year I wanted to recite a poem. And I feel like this poem fits for this occasion. And the title is When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses. And every elephant's lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence and their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory suddenly sharpened. Known on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die and are reality. Bond to them takes leave of us and our souls. Dependent on their nature, now shrink, weazened, our minds formed and informed. By their radiance, fall away. We are not much maddened and reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms. Slowly and always, irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored and never to be the same. Whispers to us, they exist. They exist. We can be and be better, for they do exist. And thank you, everyone.
The program will continue.
I really want to thank you for coming today or tonight. And I would love for you all to make sure you take home a bulletin. In there is individuals that we have been able to find that have been taken from this world before their time. And we have to remember that when people murder others, it's about taking away their happiness. It's about power and it's about control. And the only way that we can change that is that if we actually all work together on one common goal. There are a lot of individuals that have supported us in this bulletin, and I would really encourage you to, when you go, talk about that you've seen it and tell them thank you. It's important that we understand that individuals that own businesses and organizations that support the trans community support one another. So I would, with that, it ends the Transgender Day of Remembrance, a reading of the names. We will be here afterwards. If you want to look at the statue, it is the first Transgender Day of Remembrance cenotaph statue, which was created and inspired from Yasmin Sanchez, who was murdered in Florida, and her body was thrown in an alleyway and burned to death. It was done by her partner, who she outed, and he killed her. And so the fetal position of the body inspired the statue. The butterflies are actually a spiritual symbol of the trans community, caterpillar to butterfly. So it's a transformation. And so the butterflies that are on the statue represent those that have ascended and are no longer with us. Thank you again, and thank you for your sacrifice for coming in here tonight. I know it was a COVID challenge, and be safe, be well, and just try to help out your fellow human being. Thank you.
For our television audience, since there was a little bit of audio issue at the very beginning, I wanted you to know that that is Tommy Clinton, who is the CEO of the Transgender Health and Wellness Center. Throughout the broadcast, you've been told how you can support this important organization. Go to trans.health for information all about the organization, and trans.health/donate to support this organization in particular. But I'm sure wherever you are in your community, there's something more than you can do in remembrance of them. This is a day that should not need to exist, but unfortunately it does. And I ask you out there to do what you can to expand enlightenment, to fight the good fight, and to make a difference.
You're with me, it's alright. Together, all our lives, a new start is inside.